everyone. My name is Jessica Dumas. I'm the chairperson for the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce and president of Jessica Dumas Coaching and Training. I'd like to recognize the territory that this webinar is coming to you from, Treaty 1 territory, home of the Ojibwe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene nations, and homeland of the Red River Métis. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Excuse me. In a very short time, COVID-19 has changed the way that we shop, trade, work, and consume content. At our chambers, we immediately shifted our day-to-day programming and staff roles to adapt to the critical needs of our members. Our new ways of working and engaging will continue to change our programming for years to come, guaranteed. As the economy reopens, businesses need to understand the need to adapt to this new economy. The crisis presents an opportunity to reboot and reposition yourself for a new economy that will be more digital, more virtual, and more mobile than we've ever seen before. It's our innovations in the small business community that will rebuild Canada. Recent surveys by the Winnipeg and the Manitoba Chamber underscores the impact on small business and echoes many of the ideas that we're going to discuss here today. As a chamber movement, we remain firmly committed to helping you navigate change successfully. Today, we welcome Heidi Naka, VP of Business Markets here in Manitoba, who's going to walk us through a recent report released by RBC Small Business, The Big Pivot. The report will discuss 5 ways to help your business thrive in a post-pandemic economy. After Heidi's presentation, we'll continue our business and industry expert panel for an engaging Q&A on the future of small business. But first, I'd like to introduce you to Rachel Ganadin, RBC Manager of Business Markets here in Winnipeg, and she's going to introduce our keynote speaker. Good morning, Rachel. Off to you.
Thank you, Jessica, and good morning, everyone. I'm Rachel Ganadin, the Winnipeg leader in RBC Business Markets. I'd like to thank Lauren, Jessica, Liz, Sean, and all of our great friends at the Winnipeg Chamber for their tremendous partnership in bringing today's event to you. It's a privilege to be here today and share this moment with all of you. It's also my privilege to share in this virtual stage with some tremendous storytellers, advice givers, and above all else, a community of leaders eager to lift each one of us in the face of this pandemic. RBC Thought Leadership shares in these values, objectives, and focus. We're committed to providing a wide range of tools and resources designed to help us all reimagine how we do business and how we will all reemerge from this current environment. These resources include the RBC Disruptors podcast, focused on bringing together some of the greatest minds, business leaders, and role models for innovation across our business communities. Key reports, such as the one we will be discussing today, that lean into data and insights under the guidance of one of Canada's premier thought leaders, John Stackhouse, are foundational to how we are looking at where Canada is heading and how we all can be there sooner to greet the future when it arrives. The RBC 10-Minute Take podcast provides insights from RBC's economists and market experts on events unfolding around the globe. These short, focused podcasts may include industry-specific topics or economic updates for various geographies. With RBC's support, Tony Chapman, Canadian marketing and business leader, launches a new Small Business Matters series as part of his Chatter Matters podcast, bringing together owners and business experts to share insights, advice, and tips for survival. In this podcast series, Tony Chapman talks with Canadian entrepreneurs about how their lives have changed since COVID-19. Joined by a panel of experts and thought leaders, Small Business Matters dives into the challenges facing entrepreneurs to provide timely insights, ideas, and much needed inspiration. Simply Google RBC Thought Leadership to open up to a world of new perspectives to support in your individual journeys. I share this with you because it's important to us at RBC, just as it is to the Chamber across our province, that you feel supported while having access to what you need to prosper in face of challenging headwinds. Because the core of RBC Thought Leadership is a care and compassion for our clients and our communities. And that is also what is at the core of today's keynote speaker, authentic care and compassion. Heidi Naka is the Vice President of Business Markets for RBC for Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Nunavut, and Western Ontario. With approximately 4,000 small business clients under her portfolio, Heidi leads a talented and dedicated team of business market leaders and business account managers across the region. Heidi grew up surrounded by a family business, a multi-generational family tree of entrepreneurs in the pulp industry. Her grandfather founded the business, and she and her family all play a role in shaping its story. The story Heidi brings to us today is one of a 5-point plan on reemergence aligned to a new launched RBC thought leadership report entitled Small Business, Big Pivot. It's my pleasure to welcome my leader in today's keynote, Heidi Naka.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And thank you. I echo your expression of gratitude to the Winnipeg Chamber for hosting this important discussion today. It's been said, there's no education like adversity. So we're all about the greatest lesson of our lives. What we learn and the choices small firms make are critical. Collectively, that will help us to shape the Canadian economy in the 2020s.
This isn't the time for excess pessimism
or false optimism, but for realism. COVID-19 has dealt a severe blow to the Canadian economy. Small businesses are among those feeling the most pain. So RBC wanted to get a sense of how deeply. This new RBC study indicated that more than 4 out of 5 small businesses had experienced 2/3 had a drop of over 50%. On average, these businesses had laid off 75% of their staff, and most owners had cut their own salaries. Firms with fewer than 100 employees accounted for nearly 60% of job losses in the first 2 months of the pandemic. That's twice the share of job losses that shouldered during the 2008-2009 recession. Small firms have recorded almost double the rate of job losses as mid-size and larger firms. I'm sure many of you listening today understand this all too well. The scale of what we're undergoing is uncharted. We've been through downturns before, what we've simultaneously confronting an economic, health, and social shock. Tomorrow will look very different. Any rebuild needs to support the small business community, not to just get back to where they were pre-COVID, but to transition to a new economy. As a great friend of small business, RBC has always been there to support the dreams and growth of entrepreneurs. Ingenuity defines this sector. The people running small businesses are nimble and inventive. They know how to navigate change. They'll have to now. However, it won't be easy. These companies will be tested as perhaps never before to survive and thrive. Small business needs to make a big pivot. We want to help you assess what you're facing and also grasp what's possible. RBC has prepared a report on small business challenges and recovery titled Small Business Big Pivot. Let me share some thoughts on the landscape for small business during and post-COVID, the segments that are particularly vulnerable, and the path forward. Big corporations are household names, but small firms form the bulk of business in Canada. That's our economic engine, 1 million+ firms representing 42% of Canadian GDP. In all, 40% of the Canadian workforce works at firms with under 100 employees. The sector generates close to 60% of new jobs. Think of a small business in your local cafe or shop may come to mind. We all have our favorites across Winnipeg and Manitoba, but Canada's small business universe is broad. It encompasses everything from third-generation construction companies to software startups founded by recent engineering grads to oil well maintenance firms. Canada ranks as one of the easiest places in which to start a business. In fact, the World Bank puts us in second spot in 2018. And we know Manitoba supports a thriving startup community. In surveys, Canadians consistently report healthy entrepreneurial attitudes specific to traits like risk-taking and self-confidence. We need it now more than ever. During the global financial crisis, policymakers worried about too big to fail. Then, they protected systematically important banks and insurers, shored up supply chain foundations like auto companies. This time around, the policy mantra should be too small to fail. The pace of Canada's economic activity and job creation hinges on the ability of small businesses to adapt in this new world. In every corner of every Canadian community, companies have been blindsided. Customer demand is down, businesses have been shuttered, some temporarily, and sadly others permanently. Enterprises of every sort are dealing with plunging revenues and a cash flow squeeze. As restrictions lift and economic activity resumes, the business environment will look substantially different. How, you might ask? The RBC survey found that 9 in 10 small business owners just don't know what the future holds. Understanding the obstacles and opportunities ahead could provide small firms with a measure of clarity. Our analysis offers a sense of which types of firms face the biggest hurdles and how the pandemic might reshape economic activity. Let's start by understanding, as RBC study found, that firms in different sectors have very different abilities to withstand this crisis. We looked at 3 factors: the role of fixed costs in their operations, like rent, utilities, and property taxes; liquidity restraints, like overall debt and debt servicing abilities; and the extent to which physical contact is involved in delivering their products and services. Based on that, and through our research, we identified 5 industries, which I'm sure will not come as any surprise to you, where small firms face particular challenges. 1, accommodation and food services; 2, arts and entertainment; 3, non-essential retail; 4, commercial real estate leasing; and 5, mining, oil, and gas. Together, they employ 1.2 million workers. That's what's at risk. Firms in these sectors tend to have higher fixed costs and debt loads. Social distancing policies will keep challenging them. Storefronts and restaurants are reeling, with many missing rent payments or facing closures. When venues and events will be full again is anybody's guess. When are we going to see the next Jets game, cheer on the Bombers, attend Folklorama or Folkfest? Small firms servicing the mining and oil and gas industries will also be hit hard. Who's in relatively better shape, you might ask? Small firms in manufacturing and wholesale trade, professional, scientific, and technical services, along with administrative services. They have lower fixed costs and higher variable costs, so some financial flexibility. These firms score higher on liquidity, and many can deliver products and services even with social distancing needed. Canada is a nation of small business. Not all face equal challenges, but the environment has transformed for everyone. What might the economy look like for the rest of 2020 and into 2021 and beyond? Here's the big picture. The federal government has taken extraordinary steps to help keep small business afloat, with a mix of wage subsidies, interest-free loans, tax breaks, and outright grants. Even with government support, firms will face months of little to no revenue. And to that, the cost to enable social distancing or invest in new service and product delivery methods. The disruption will temporarily limit the Canadian economy's capacity, and many questions remain. Will companies be able to transform their business model? Can they manage more debt? Will supply chains remain intact? Will changes in spending habits be permanent? We don't have the answers yet. Then, for any small business, there's the question of what happens to their staff. Close to 5 million Canadians are working from home as a result of the pandemic. Others were doing it already. Together, that totals about 40% of the workforce. Many employees worry about returning to work. Others might only want to return to their old office infrequently, if at all. So businesses will have to think differently about work. The potential silver lining might be the opportunity to lower the cost structures of your physical premises. The migration of workers to alternative workspaces could lead some organizations to reconfigure their operational footprint and transform digitally. But weigh that against the challenge of keeping remote employees engaged, productive, the training and mentoring at a distance challenges, and integrating the corporate culture into a virtual setting. What we foresee in some pent-up spending, but an uneven recovery hampered by supply chain disruptions, firm failures, continued social distancing measures, and health fears. The bottom line is, after 7.1% contraction in 2020, we expect the Canadian economy to rebound 4.9% in 2021. However, we don't anticipate the economy to return to pre-pandemic levels until the midpoint of 2022. That will mean a huge loss of GDP through this period. The impact will vary across and within provinces and across industries. What seems clear already is that all businesses moving forward will have to assess new ways of operating, delivering products and services, and meeting consumer demand. It can seem that COVID may change everything, how we work, shop, trade, travel, recreate, and learn. But what we're now experiencing has merely accelerated a decade-long transformation of our economy. On top of that, the outbreak is creating new economic trends. There's no going back to business as usual. What can small businesses do to help themselves, and how can they be helped? Let's turn to a roadmap for the post-pandemic future. The recovery depends on many factors, not least of which is the timing of a variable and viable vaccine or effective COVID-19 treatment. 3 out of 4 Canadians say they won't feel safe until such a time. The extent and pace of the recovery also depends on how many small businesses bounce back, how quickly, and in what way. So we all need to rethink. Policymakers and business groups must craft strategies to help small businesses shift to a new way of competing and winning. We've identified 5 major opportunities. Capitalizing on this path forward can play a huge role in the business recovery. Let's start with the immediate need for relief. The federal government has committed a historic amount of small businesses through the crisis, but still some programs are too complicated or too dependent on debt instruments. At RBC, we hear this daily. Moving forward, the government can refresh those efforts, but what might they include? Perhaps a topped-up Canadian Emergency Business Account, or CEBA, with an additional forgivable loan component if applied to rehired staff or commercial rent. To help with cash flow, we could see an enhanced promotion of the Business Credit Availability Program. We also need rehiring. That could involve a transition of CERB. In fact, our own Premier has indicated he's going to kick CERB to the curb. This will allow for a sliding scale of benefits to be paid to those going back on payroll all through the summer. Youth who suffered outsized employment declines could be helped by a transition of the Student Relief Program. A sales tax holiday for small businesses, and I'm sure something you'd all love to see, combined with a Buy and See Canada initiative, could also kickstart local shopping and tourism. So number one, there's a massive opportunity to refocus and streamline relief efforts as we shift to recovery and a slow rebuild. Secondly, we need to invest in small business capacity to reopen safely. Governments have been more focused on public health and private enterprise. They can help both by helping employees get back to business. We suggest having provincially led and funded coalitions comprising business groups and chambers to provide personal protective equipment to small businesses. We can also use provincial support to provide on-site testing for employees and as appropriate for customers. Another way to instill confidence is by providing an emergency training grant for safety credentials for employees and a safety certification for small businesses. The initial focus could be on restaurants, accommodation, and retail outlets. Every enterprise will be challenged to reopen. However, many smaller ones will be doubly challenged because they lack the expertise to operate in a transformed work environment. So let's ensure they have it. 3, let's make a massive digital push. Many small businesses have risen to the digital challenge, from app-based ordering for restaurants to online shopping to virtual yoga lessons. Others need to play catch up. As recently as 2017, according to Statistics Canada, nearly half of Canadian firms with fewer than 500 employees didn't even have a website. Of those that did, fewer than 10% could do online payments. The Business Development Bank of Canada says over half of Canadian small businesses have low levels of digital maturity. That means using digital tools to interact with customers, partners, or suppliers and extend market research. It means collecting and using data to make decisions, along with digitizing and integrating business processes. A broad recovery plan needs a digital strategy for small business. It could include tax credits for these companies to invest in Canadian designed software and hardware to enable digital growth. A 5-year investment in regional tech accelerators and provincial chambers of commerce could also train and develop small businesses and digital co-op movements. Many small businesses already do a great job in the digital space. To operate differently and capture new opportunities, many more need to up their digital game. Going digital is only one way to grow. So 4, we need to develop new economic strategies to scale small businesses. The transformed economy will be more fragmented, localized, and challenging for small enterprises. Scale will matter more than ever to compete and drive efficiencies. What could help? For one, alliances by governments and large enterprises to designate preferred small business suppliers. Right now, interprovincial trade barriers can deter small businesses from entering new markets, even next door. Overcoming these challenges could be lucrative. The Bank of Canada has estimated that reducing interprovincial trade barriers by just 10% would raise potential GDP by 0.6% over 3 years. One idea, for example, a provincial commitment to lower trade barriers for Canadian small businesses in 2021 as part of a recovery program. Strategies like these can help small businesses to grow, to strengthen the economy, and from communities from coast to coast. The 5th and final opportunity we've identified is to take a more strategic approach to globalization. The pandemic upended global supply chains and highlighted some of the shortcomings. Exhibit 1, Canada's shortage of foreign-produced N95 respirators during the initial stages of the pandemic. It's thanks to many small businesses that we rose to the challenge. These companies retooled to produce products like masks and ventilators. That underscored the ability to shift gears and innovate. Small businesses need to do much more of that, and not just for the domestic market. Canada requires a more focused approach to trade. One step could be to create a coalition of governments, banks, and other institutions to develop a Brand Canada platform for small businesses. A concerted Go Global program through the existing network of trade accelerators could also put a great focus on countries and regions that are more open to Canadian exports. We also must focus on strategic sectors that can drive employment, growth, agriculture and food production, advanced manufacturing, education services, health and life sciences, and energy tech. Supply chains are rewiring, so we need to build up capabilities for manufacturing and trade. So to recap a way forward, Streamline Ottawa's financial relief programs, invest in the capacity to reopen safely, have a digital strategy for small business, scale up small firms, and take a more strategic approach to globalization. Given the vital role small firms play in our national economy and local communities here and across Manitoba, we must help as many as possible to exit the crisis in stronger shape than when they entered it. Our five-point plan can certainly help with that. As we move into the recovery, consider this. Even in the relatively early days of COVID, firms were already showing their resiliency. In late April, we saw results from the Canadian Survey of Business Conditions, a joint effort between Statistics Canada and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Amidst the drops in revenue and demand, here's what businesses were already doing. More than 1/3 had altered their products or services. 45% had used new methods to interact with customers. That's amazing. Almost 1 in 5 had altered methods of production, and more than 1 in 10 had quickly tested e-commerce. When traditional opportunities erode, entrepreneurialism rises. Tough times can spur growth. A study once found that over half of Fortune 500 companies got their start during a downturn. Moreover, existing companies use periods like this to reinvent themselves. It's in times of uncertainty that countless founders and operators push to try new approaches, develop new products and services, create new ways to deliver them, and unearth new sources of revenue. In the words of Andy Grove, former CEO of Intel, bad companies are destroyed by crisis. Good companies survive them. Great companies are improved by them. We don't know the future, but we can certainly look to the lessons of the past. If we were meeting 100 years ago, it would be against the backdrop of the Spanish flu. That pandemic began in 1918 and continued into 1920. It killed at least 50 million people around the world, including 55,000 in Canada. Then, like now, public gatherings were outlawed, people walked around in masks, and the economy was knocked back. Remember, too, that the Spanish flu came on the heels of World War I. How much adversity could people take? Over 2 years, real income per capita fell in Canada by nearly 15%. Some economists felt the world was near a collapse. So what happened next? The Roaring '20s. In just a few years, Canadian per capita incomes had entirely made up for the losses of the recession. The next decade saw revolutions in technology, a boost in living standards, and exciting social and cultural progress. Some would argue that the economy of the 1920s was very different than the economy of the 2020s. Back then, the dominant sectors, agriculture and manufacturing, were less vulnerable to a pandemic than are today's retail and service industries. The supply chains and consumption patterns of the 1920s were very different. So was the extent of leverage by consumers and businesses. Then again, the post-Spanish flu economy has zero ability, as we do, for people to work, collaborate, and conduct commerce online. We don't know what exactly the business environment in the new world will look like post-COVID. It can be hard to picture a new normal now. Large crowds are going about their business on Corden, in the Exchange District, in the Whiteshell Provincial Park, in Clear Lake. And commerce getting back to full steam, but it will happen because it always has. The road ahead will be bumpy. It will also be lined with tremendous opportunity. For every activity that's disrupted, there's a corresponding possibility. New businesses will restore much of our lost capacity. Surviving businesses will transition and expand. They'll have to. We have to work together to propel smaller enterprises forward in a different type of economy. For many small businesses, the focus now is simply on survival. That's understandable given the pressing challenges. Again, we hear this every day, but being unprepared for a very different kind of recovery could be just as costly as the unprecedented collapse. Some things we can't control. No one can control outside forces like a pandemic. But ultimately, it's the things that we can control that will set us on the right path. In conclusion, for small businesses, what you can control is the way you tap into your entrepreneurial spirit. Embrace new technologies, build new brands, adapt new models, and seize new strategies. Do that, and a critical sector can take change and charge of this movement to reboot, reimage, and rebound.
Good morning. My name is Peggy May, and I'm the chair of the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce. And it is my distinct pleasure to be here today to introduce our business panelists. But first, let me thank Heidi Naka for her thoughts on our current state and how we are transitioning into recovery. It was very enlightening. I really encourage everyone to read that report. I read it last night. It's very, very interesting. And we're also fortunate that Heidi will be joining the other panelists this morning. So let me introduce them. First, let me introduce Joseph Chabon. He's the president of Chabon Ice Cream. My favorite, salty caramel, if you haven't been there yet. Fabulous. And then we have Ian Vickers, who's the Chief Operating Officer of Diversity Food Services. Kay Gardner, who is the Interim CEO of Tech Manitoba. And Shannon Fontaine, who is the CEO of Manitoba Tourism Education Council and College. So welcome to each of you, and thank you for your participation today. Jessica and I are going to take turns asking the panel a couple of questions, and then we'll have specific questions for each of the 5 panelists. If you have other questions, we encourage you to register them in the chat line. And if we don't get to them today, we'll be sure to post them online, but we'll try to address as many as we can. So I will ask Jessica if she could ask the first question of our panelists, please.
Sure, thank you, Peggy, and thanks so much, Heidi, for that presentation. I feel like with everything that's going on in the world, I could just sit and listen and soak that in. So that was really, and the report is incredible. So definitely something that I encourage everyone to get their hands on. So thank you so much for that. So we'll get right into the questions. Here is the first one. This is open to each of you. So if you don't already have your cameras on, please feel free to do that. And while you're not speaking, we'll just remind you to mute just to help hear everybody else. So a question for each of you, and I will ask Mark if he will go first. So what is your biggest challenge and opportunity right now going forward? And how is that different for you as a small business than it is for larger corporations? So the first question, what's your biggest challenge and your biggest opportunity right now?
Who is the question for, Jessica?
For Mark.
He's not on the, yeah, so maybe, I think.
No, I meant to say Joseph. I'm sorry about that. I was thinking Joseph, I said Mark. President of Chabon Ice Cream.
The best ice cream.
Do we have Joseph on here?
Joseph?
There he is. We just
Hi.
got to unmute you. There we go. Hi, Joseph.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for having me on, and it's truly a pleasure to be on this panel and enjoying this webinar. Thank you to you, RBC and the Chambers.
Absolutely.
So can you repeat the question?
Sure. So Joseph, what is your biggest challenge and opportunity going forward right now?
So as you know, we pivoted from a retail store. We are in manufacturing for our ice cream, and now we are in e-commerce, ice cream in e-commerce. My challenge now is we rehired a new programmer for simplifying our Shopify website and making it more easy to use navigation for our customers. So that's the biggest challenge right now, is how do we get our customers easily adapting to this online service that we just started, and it is working, and we're very happy for that. I hope that answers the question a bit, or do you need me to go in more detail?
No, that's great. Thank you. I will invite Ian of Diversity Foods. If you'll please share with us your biggest challenge and your biggest opportunity right now.
Absolutely, happy to. A lot like Joseph, sort of our biggest opportunity has to do with being nimble, right? And so for us, we can quickly strategies and then move things around and then pivot to, so like Joseph, we went to an online model that has customers trying to interact with a website that we didn't really know the resources out there these days. And so when it comes to sort of what that challenge is, it's about making for your customers to get it so that they can get access to our goods and get access to our market. At the same opportunity is because we're so nimble, it means that, you know, when our primary customer base sort of had to leave campus and had to leave where we do business, by the 17th of March, we were able to pivot to grocery, right? We're now reaching a point where some of those multinationals and those big companies are now getting into that online grocery delivery market, and they've been there basically since Easter. And so we're starting to see things shrink down. And so we start to make the next jump, right? And we'll start to make the jump now to taking small delivery catering orders to individual houses and into the few businesses that are now operating and over to that way. So I think that when it comes to what our opportunity is, being a small business, our opportunity is just that ability to pivot quickly without having to wait for, you know, corporate head offices on top of corporate head offices to verify what they've got to do and develop a strategy that's going to work for them nationally and is, you know, they're only going to do this one thing in Manitoba because they're doing something else in Ontario. We don't have to do that, right? We can customize and just do what needs to get done.
Excellent. Thank you, Ian. Shannon, I'll ask you to share a response. What is your biggest challenge or your biggest opportunity right now?
Well, the biggest challenge was definitely that we represent an industry that's been hit catastrophically by this COVID-19, whether it's hotels, airport, all of the industries we've served. So we're a training institution, both the council and the college. So we got shut down, right? Like everybody else, they told us to shut our doors. And the way we pivoted is to switch to Zoom training. So we tried 9, thinking we'll see how this goes. And part of it was thinking people are sitting at home losing their minds, right? You can't go to work, you're looking, you know, you're listening to the news, and that's about enough to make you jump off a cliff. So we started doing Zoom training, and we did it instructor-led, exactly the same as if you were sitting in MTech. You would be sitting in, and we'd have 40, 50 people on, and we're still doing it. There's one happening today. So it took off. Our trainers have become counselors because people are being able to talk and about what they're experiencing, but it's been phenomenal. We've probably trained close to 3,000 people, and we started at the end of April. So it's been amazing, and we will keep doing it when we start doing classroom training again. We'll resume. We're still doing food handlers, but we'll resume our regular classroom training in September, but we'll keep doing the Zoom. It's been a really, really successful and expanded our reach because everybody around the province is signing in.
Excellent. Yeah, I can, Zoom is obviously one of the popular ones that we're using too. And in my business, the same thing. Work has not stopped. So yeah, very exciting. Back to you, Peggy, for the next question.
Okay, so maybe we'll start this one off with Kay. If I'm in business and I want to make that pivot to delivering my service or product, where do I start?
I think what we've seen from the Tech Manitoba side with our members are tech companies, tech-enabled companies, companies that help with tech enabling. What we've really seen is that everyone had a digital experience in March, whether they wanted to or not. What they were going to do someday now became today, right? Like it wasn't the future anymore. Someone in healthcare told me that they felt like they went forward 10 years, right? So a lot of people pivoted, a lot of things moved quickly. And I think right now, the biggest thing that companies can do is realize that digital strategy, like that RBC is talking about, has to be part of your business strategy. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. And that when you put that on the table with your executive team, the digital strategy is part of it. So I think that's the first step and the most important step. How does it fit and what do you want to get out of it? How much can you do on your own, and how much do you need expert outside assistance for that?
Okay, great comment. Heidi, are you still there?
Hi, yes, I am, Peggy.
Great. Can you give us an idea of where we would start if we want to make that pivot as a small business?
Yeah, you know what? That's a fantastic question, and quite frankly, varied answer. So from that perspective, you know what? There's a number of different things. So, you know what? Small businesses are looking for ways to increase revenue, look at varying revenue lines, and completely different revenue lines. So basically, I think, you know what, the sky's the limit. Start by documenting what your ideas might be, and then I think go from there to working on some projections. So what will the new revenue stream cost? So if you have to look to a new supplier, what are the costs going to be there? What are you hoping to be able to generate in sales? How is that going to balance out? And calculate some of that to help yourself and stick with that path, but be agile and be able to pivot quickly. So you know what, when Joseph and Ian were both speaking, that is the strength of small businesses. They don't have to run their ideas by a board of directors. When Joseph decided to change the nature of his ice cream business, I'm sure he sat down and thought it through, and that was the only decision making that needed to happen, was to just move forward, as long as he was able to calculate what he could do through an e-commerce channel. So I think the projections, just in summary, the projections are important. It's important to think through what is it going to cost to change your way of doing business, and how much revenue do you hope to be able to generate.
Excellent. Thanks, Heidi. Ian, what about you? What do you recommend in terms of where to start if you wanted to pivot your business to deliver your product in a new way?
Well, the first thing for me was get educated quickly about what the platforms you already have can do, right? Like Heidi was saying, there is a cost to taking things online and to making those big jumps and to sort of making that move to happen, and you have to be able to do it quickly. But a lot of us actually have things built into our websites where we already have e-commerce features that we just haven't realized are even there, right? I mean, and those are limited. I mean, one of the things that we learned very quickly was when we decided that we wanted to go online with a few different business models, we can't, right? Number one, as a small business, we can't afford to make the kind of infrastructure the kind of change to our web presence that would allow us to, we can't through our Squarespace, that would allow for a lot more of a scale up. But what we could do was had enough already built in there that allowed us to move to grocery models, to move to offering, up to 300 different items. We can't put our whole offering list on there, but we can sort of figure out what we already have access to, what we already are paying for in our website, what we can do, and figure out sort of what that means, and then scale yourself appropriately.
Excellent. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks. Back to you, Jessica.
Unmute. All right. So when it comes to government support, what do you think is needed to fuel a recovery? Is it adapting an existing support program, reducing some of the regulations, or investing in a specific focus? So Joseph, I'm going to invite you to respond first with regards to government supports.
So when the pandemic happened, it was around March, and with ice cream, it's very seasonal. Our wholesale is very limited because we're growing that right now, but majority of our money, at least 80% of revenue that we make, is during June, July, and August. That carries us through the whole summer. So when the pandemic happened, when the federal government came up with a $40,000 loan, that really helped us, and the wage subsidy. The way it helped us is okay, we noticed that we can't get our services to customers by hand. So we had to adapt and go towards e-commerce. So we used that money, we doubled down and we focused and said, we honestly believe that e-commerce was the future. So we actually took that money and invested into the platforms that we needed. And bless you.
Thank you.
And so that $40,000 loan really saved our company. Depending on the company, I believe some need more, some might need less, but we need the federal government and the province to go case by case towards what kind of business it is, because small businesses don't need as much money as larger businesses, and they matter as much as small businesses. So yes, I would say more of these loans that we need to help us. The wage subsidy, I don't know, I know it's finishing in August, and maybe extending that, because as you know, we do need this for a lot longer than August. And that's what really saved our company. The the government helped, and we're hoping that they continue to help. We're just grateful that our subscription model worked and it's excelling. But for those new businesses that are smaller or same size and just getting on board with the e-commerce, need to adapt, and they might need that money to survive.
Great, thank you. Kate, I see that you're sharing a note that you might have some ideas. Please share.
You know, speaking to Ian and Joseph's points, I think one of the things that we've seen is that digital adoption costs money and takes energy and skills that maybe need to be upgraded or whatever the case might be. We really think it could be interesting to see government incentives that would maybe subsidize website development or e-commerce development. That could work really in partnership with the private sector too. It could be a private public partnership. You know, making sure that these skills exist. The other thing is that right now there's federal tax credits that exist for tradespeople to purchase tools. What if that type of thing could happen to get digital tools? That could happen for any sort of business. So I think there's creative ways of not just giving money, but giving money for the reasons that like Joseph and Ian chose to invest in.
Absolutely, that's a great comment. Thank you for sharing that. Ian, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would just like to, I mean, as to echo what Joseph had said about the federal wage subsidy, it's been a godsend for us. That's one of those programs that has really meant massive amounts for us. That said, the 40K loan program that they rolled out, diversity wasn't eligible for that. We are apparently a small business, according to most people, but apparently not to this program, which was interesting to me. But it looks like a fantastic program that I'd love to be because the reality is that reopening, especially for a restaurant, is going to require not only large investment in digital products, as Kate was saying, but also we're going to need a whole bunch of physical barriers put in place. You know, our business model is really based on packing a whole bunch of people into a room that is the dining room. And this whole thing where we've had different portions of different amounts of occupancy to allow us in, that hasn't been helpful. Frankly, that's been the opposite of helpful. It's been made things worse. So this thing where we're going to need to buy a whole lot of equipment in order to make service safe as we move forward. And as well, the back of house, right? I mean, we've all known that in restaurants, the front of house is what makes you revenue. So that's what you build out. And your kitchens tend to be these tiny little broom closets that we stuff 8 people into and tell them to make food. And that's not going to work as we reopen and as we go through the next 2 years of this. So the reality is that we do need some federal or provincial or some level of support to help us get some loans that are not contingent on payroll expenses, because I don't know when we decided that that was how we would define small businesses, but it's not a good way to define it. So that's the first thing we need to do is get out some loans that are helpful to actually buy some assets, both digital and real world, so that we can reopen, but also make them more accessible.
Thank you. Yeah, very good comments, Ian. Thank you. Back to you, Peggy.
Unmute myself. Okay, so I think we're now into the individual questions, and again, I would encourage anybody online that has a question for any of our panelists to please let us know, and we'll try to get to those today as well. But this question is for Joseph, specifically because you made a big change to your business over the past few months, and you launched a subscription model, which I'm personally thrilled about. Can you walk us through how you made that decision and how the experiment has worked so far?
Yes, I would love to, because, you know, around 2 years ago, I joined a EOA organization, and they tell you about getting subscription 10% extra to your revenue on your business. And what I like about this, because it allows other business owners to adapt this, what's happening. So 2 years ago, I've been told this, you can generate 10% more just on the subscription model to your revenue. And we were so busy, I didn't even think about it. My partners didn't think about it at that time. And when this pandemic happened, we had to strategize. And, you know, one of the options was a subscription model. And it totally made sense because I heard about it multiple times for the last 2 years, but we didn't have the encouragement to do it. And we just said, we gotta do it. It's now or never, and this might save our company. We were very fortunate that it did save our company. Very, very fortunate. So we had to get things in place. We had already a good website. So we had to think, okay, what's the best platform for us? There's a lot of different platforms. We chose Shopify. After choosing Shopify, customers can go to that website. They can choose what kind of ice cream they want, what kind of monthly subscription. And then after that, it's how do we get those payments? We use Bold. It's a local company here in Manitoba. They helped as well with programming. And then we had to deliver this service. So depending on how many customers you have, we chose OnFleet. It allows us to send out messages to the customer, telling them where we are. They can track us on their telephone. So it was about 3-4 steps before we got this up and running that we had to secure first, which needs money, obviously. But sooner or later, you're gonna realize once this is up and running, you need to get a programmer now to help customers navigate through your website or through Shopify and make it more customer friendly. Because like Ian said, we have to be doing. Even if we open our store, our revenue through our subscription model is right now around 50-60%. And it's a huge number. We find it, and it's gonna be exciting, because if something does happen again, say a bump with the COVID happens, we already have the structure there that we can keep going with this.
Right. So I guess that means that this is a program that you'll continue after the pandemic threat maybe subsided a bit?
Oh yes, definitely. What excites me now, people are getting aware of e-commerce and social media. Now our marketing is directly to those customers, and we can directly deliver this to you. So this is what's so exciting, and we see it as the future now. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think Jessica, you have a question for Ian.
I do. Ian, if you could tell us a little bit about briefly what Diversity Foods was like pre-COVID pandemic, and then the changes that you've made, and what you'll keep going forward.
Okay, so I mean, pre-pandemic, our major business was serving food at the University of Winnipeg, and then serving food at out at Fort White Alive as well, and which is largely driven by weddings and large gatherings and corporate functions. As well, we do have a catering arm that goes all around Winnipeg, and we've catered for the Chamber of Commerce for some of these events before when they were held in person. So I mean, our whole business strategy was about catering for groups ranging from 100 to 5,000 people. Obviously, that's not happening right now. It hasn't been for some time. And that also means that our prime market, which is sort of all of those university students, all of those people at major events, they're not going to happen anytime soon. Where that's not coming back soon, right? We all can acknowledge that. As Heidi said earlier, we're not going to a Jets game in the near future. And I think she's right. So what have we done? Well, we started off with we quickly pivoted to doing online grocery orders that people could order sustainable, good, ethically produced, locally sourced food, and today someone would drive to your house and do contactless delivery and drop that off with you. As I said earlier, that now represents about 60% of our total revenue stream. As I said earlier, that marketplace got real full very quickly, right? I mean, very quickly the Joeys and the Earls and all of those guys started realizing they could jump on that boat as well, and the other big guys too. After that, we decided that when Manitoba relaxed some of their restrictions and said, you know, you can get together in small groups of 10 or 10 people or so, we said, okay, well, if we come to someone's house with our catering vehicle and pre-prep all of the food and we arrive and we then, you know, have it available for people, there's going to be some people who want to have graduation parties for their kids who are graduating. There is still going to be some small weddings happening and some small receptions. And so we've sort of made that was our second tier pivot. Now we're pivoting into going and doing slightly larger receptions for people where we've got a food truck that we're in the process of rolling out on the road. We'll be taking it to different businesses and mobilizing that way and just getting our food, like I said, our locally bought sustainable food out to people, because there is a hunger for that, if you'll enjoy that pun. So yeah, I mean, we basically tried to pivot from people coming to us at where we have these outlets and shifting it to us bringing the food to them. It's not easy. It's a lot harder. I mean, restaurants are notorious for having incredibly small margins, right? Typically we make 6 to 7 cents on the dollar, which is a horrible return on investment for most. And at this rate, it basically losses. But that's what we've got to do and reopen when the economy will come back.
Excellent. I like that. There's a hunger for it. That's the best pun. And I look forward to seeing that truck.
Thanks.
Our next question is for Heidi. And I actually have a question online that maybe we could do a dual question here for you. We've heard through our members through surveys that concerns about cash flow and deferred debt payments are still some of the biggest worries for small business owners. How are you working with clients to help them deal with those problems and get past survival mode for thinking about growth?
You know what? That's an excellent question, Peggy, and it's something that we work with every day with our clients. So today, we like to sit down virtually with our clients. So in pre-COVID times, we would go out and sit with our clients at their business and explore different ways to have conversations with our clients. But today, we virtually meet with them, and we start by looking for ways to actually reduce any variable costs. So in a very short-term view, is there something that the business owner can do to reduce there? And like we talked about in the report, with the types of businesses most impacted, there's less opportunity to actually reduce those variable costs, but it's still something we explore and take a look at. Next, we talk about all of the different types of government programs and try and help our clients to navigate those programs. So looking at, you know, what is CERB an option for your employees? Is the wage subsidy? You know, we've heard both Ian and Joseph reference different programs. There's no one size fits all with the government programs, and that's something to be thankful for. There's also provincial programs and small local programs. So we help navigate our clients and work with them to help identify that. It can be really confusing at such a stressful time for our business owners. So the next thing that we do is actually look at, is there a possibility to defer any of your principal payments? So we worked with all of our clients on that and looked at, you know, how long can we push those payments out to restart, which gives you an opportunity and some breathing room to be able to restart the business in a different way. Then, you know, your question about growth. Then we start to take a look at how can the business look at growth opportunities. We heard from both Ian and Joseph and Kay, there's a multitude of ways to either develop new revenue streams or opportunities for growth or enhance ones that are already existing, but maybe a smaller revenue generator for your business. And then we look at ways, you know, how do we support you with that? Is there, you know, is there an equipment loan that if you could just pivot the business with a new piece of equipment and generate a revenue that way? You know what, perhaps in Joseph's subscription business, they needed obviously access to delivery vehicles, those sorts of things. So, and then going back to my earlier point about projections, we sit down and work out, you know, so what are the costs involved with generating this new source of revenue? Is it going to be effective? Is it going to balance out? And to Ian's point, are the margins strong enough to actually be profitable and help the business move forward? So we also take time to explore all sorts of different e-commerce opportunities. Maybe that's a payment solution in behind. Maybe we help the business owner to navigate provincial guidelines. You know, lots of our customers are having difficulties navigating and understanding what exactly are the requirements to open and to safely comply, keep your employees safe, keep your customers safe. How do we do all that? We help them navigate through that too, because we talk to a multitude of restaurant owners, a multitude of small manufacturers or tech companies. So we're able to provide insight from all of those experiences. And finally, we have access to what RBC calls beyond banking products. So Shopify, like Joseph talked about, is actually one of our significant partners at RBC. So we link them to a company like Shopify that can help them to build out their ability to generate revenue. So there's just in summary, like the report talks about, there's a few different ways. And when our customers come to us with an open mind and they're agile and they're ready to pivot, then we're there for them to talk things through.
Well, that's great. Those are great tips for our members. Hopefully they're all listening carefully there. There's a quick question that came online that I'm just going to ask you quickly. I'm sorry, Jessica, I'm going to take a minute here and just get this one done. So it's basically, as we look at the report's 5-point plan through the lens of the Winnipeg business community, which of the 5 presents our greatest opportunity for growth collectively?
Yeah, you know what, that's a really good question. So thank you for the audience member that asked that question. So I think in the shorter term, one of the things that I really like is the ability to help our customers to come up with a program that will support them in becoming compliant. So picture an opportunity for an accommodation, so a hotel or a restaurant or a retailer to be able to identify, I'm certified as being COVID compliant, my employees are safe. If you come into as a customer, you will actually have a safe experience that is meeting the standards of the provincial guidelines. So I think that that will help customers to feel safe, and it will help businesses to understand what they need to do to be compliant. It's one of the biggest questions we get is that as businesses don't understand how to become COVID compliant. So if we could do that, picture a green sticker on the door of a business and people walking in, or you could demonstrate that on your website and say, you know what, this is a way that you can come in safely, I think that will help the businesses, and I think that will help the customers.
Great. Thank you, Heidi.
For Kay, I have a question. So we talked a little bit about how the pandemic accelerated the move for businesses to go to e-commerce. And we did get some advice on how that started. So I'd like to hear from you. What are some of the issues that you've seen over this acceleration that customers are coming to you for? What have you seen lately? And what's your best advice for that?
I think like we were talking about before, there was a very quick response. And so if you look at the Chamber's survey that they put out, one of the things that was in there was that 38% of respondents were working on a digital strategy and trying to get to e-commerce. I would say I don't know that we have data on how many were successful or what that looks like. It'd be very interesting to see. I know nationally, retail online sales were up 40%, so that's promising. But issues will be some of the things, and Ian kind of touched on this, you moved fast, but maybe it wasn't the best way to go digital or the best way to do e-commerce. It was what you had at your fingertips or what was most readily available or most economical. But I think now there's going to be a little bit of, not reset, but a little bit of stepping back to go, okay, did what we implemented, did it work? Is it working well? Are our customers having good experiences, like Joseph was talking about too? Because that customer experience piece is really going to matter to you continuing to have that online, those online sales. So I think, you know, that back to that bigger picture of how does it fit into your strategy, what tools are at your disposal, and how is your customer experiencing it?
Great. Good answer. Okay, the last question I have on the agenda is for Shannon. Last but not least, Shannon. So a recent survey that the Winnipeg Chamber, Manitoba Chambers, and the Business Council of Manitoba conducted said that the top factor influencing public's willingness to participate in the economic reopening is ensuring that commercial spaces are safe. And I understand MTech has introduced a new program that can help with that concern. Can you explain what Clean It Right is all about?
And I'm on bi-weekly calls with the government and business and over about consumer confidence. And I'm thinking, all these businesses have closed. Some of them are doing takeout, now they're reopening. And if people won't go in, this industry and all industries are just gonna, it will not recover. So it's not green, but it's blue. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Elkhorn Resort, we launched Clean It Right on May 26th, so not even a month ago, and over 3,000 people have registered. So we're blown away. We had no idea. It's online, and again, online. This was a gift for MTech to the industry. We're not charging the industry. So Heidi, we have hotel, restaurant, and retail, 3 separate modules. And we're partnering with the Hotel Association, Restaurant Association. They're all endorsing it. And we've got national sponsors, but it's exactly that. It's an enhanced cleaning program. We're not teaching people to be cleaners. That's not the purpose of it. It's an enhanced cleaning program on how you go in, and every touch point is basically talking about sanitization. I know more about cleaning than I ever knew in my life. The difference of sanitizing versus sterilizing. So and we made each program comprehensive. So even the retail has a restaurant component to it. And because we were getting so many calls, it's been crazy, literally, since launching. We are going to add a 4th module for business, small business center and training centers, or service centers. So business offices and service centers is what it will be called. And it, again, we'll launch it probably the next 10 days. We've just finished the curriculum and we're just sort of fine tuning it, and it will be online. Again, free to the industry. So, and I have a really hard time sticking just to the industry. I always have. Peggy used to be on our board, so she knows. We don't say no to too many people. So even the people that we're charging, it's like $5 because we're paying an access fee. So we're subsidizing it. But the outreach has been tremendous. And even the comments we get are just, thank you so much for doing this. And people are struggling. We talk about small businesses, big businesses, it's all the same. I came from the hotel industry and we never closed. It could be quiet, we never closed. And you look at all of the hotels and restaurants closing is catastrophic. It's unheard of. And people are dealing with the emotional as well. And staff not wanting to work into a business that, I don't know if it's clean, I don't want to get this. So it's not masks, it's not gloves. It's a cleaning program that will outlive COVID-19, I promise you. So again, we're thrilled with the results, and I've given it to 5 provinces. So they're launching it in Newfoundland today, and then it will be Nova Scotia probably next week, and New Brunswick, PEI, and BC. So this is now a national program. And again, I thought of it on April 12th. So it's been crazy, but we're thrilled, and we're giving it to the industry for a year, but I think it will surpass that as well. So,
Excellent.
And again, a safety program for employees and for customers to feel confident going into a business.
And they can find that on your website.
They can, and it will link it to the actual, it has its own website as well. Yes, so Clean It Right.
Excellent. Good to know. So there's a question here for you, Shannon. Tourism centers from the arts and culture sector, such as Delvin Art Museum, are very excited about the Clean It Right program, since we are part retail, part event space, part food service, both indoors and outdoors. Oh, and they signed up today, so it wasn't really a question, just a great comment for you.
They decide which ones to take. So yeah, that's and we get museums. We're working with Film Training Manitoba to develop a system. Everybody has the same issues, and again, not just in Manitoba. All those provinces contacted us. So I can't tell you how rewarding this is to be doing something, right? And it's yeah, we're going to get through this.
Great. I have a question. So in the past, we've seen a great level of investment and love for shopping local. We've had many campaigns, and many times we support these campaigns in many ways, but they subside. So a question for Ian and Joseph specifically: how can we transform and take that love for shopping local and take it from being a bell curve to a diagonal line that continues to go up, and love and support and show our love that way through shopping local? Go ahead, Ian.
Okay. I've been working with diversity where we shop local and buy local, and like our local sustainable models procure everything. And have been working on that for years. I don't know how to convince people to keep it that way. Like you said, there was a silver bullet solution to that. It's about education, right? People need to be understanding that when you buy locally, how regional multipliers is and what that spin-off effect is for a local economy. And if we aren't educating people on that early in life, I think that it's one of those things that people don't get, right? It's really hard for people to understand what it means for that local economy and what it means for jobs to buy locally. But yeah, no, Joseph, maybe you could have got a better insight than me.
Silver bullet answer.
So one thing in our business, we try to explain why our prices are a little bit higher or at a premium price, because that's the number one thing they say, oh, why is it expensive? And we collaborate with a lot of local businesses, farmers, farms, like raspberries, strawberries, cherries, milk producers. And we try to implement that on our site, that this is one of our core values, to support local. So when we collaborate with certain businesses, that we show this on our social media, that we just collaborated with someone. This is one way to inform your customer. Another way, so we could have used DoorDash in delivering our product to our customers, but we wanted to drop that and hire our own staff and drivers. That way they can go to the customer, have that real customer experience, and really make it feel like it is local. Because when you have your own staff, you can train them the way that the environment is around your company. And it's to care about one another. It's to care about that customer that you have. And we could do things above and beyond to our customers where if we hired a third party cannot do. So this is one way that we get our local community involved, is just having more genuine feel to the business.
That's great. We're similar, Joseph. That's wonderful to hear that you guys are using those. That I know it's you guys delivering directly because it's your employee that comes to my house to drop off the ice cream subscription.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it is. It really know what it is that they're serving and what's going on. And yeah, I'm with you on that perception. And that's similarly why we don't use a DoorDash or a Skip or one of those services.
Nice.
We employ our own delivery guys, because that means that it's three more jobs that we know are going to be good paying jobs, that are going to be in our local economy, that we know are all of those dollars are staying here. Thanks.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Great. There's one more question for Heidi. I know we're running out of time here, but Heidi, if you're still there, questions from Lauren, actually. We're talking about small business needs to get through COVID and prosper post-COVID. What is the future for those that are likely to start a business post-COVID? And are the needs of those about to start a business that different from those in business? Looking ahead, what's the future for business starts in our province?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Thank you, Lauren, for asking, and thank you, Peggy. I just want to actually add on to the previous question about the shop local, because that's also something that is incredibly top of mind, and it's a discussion that happens across this country between RBC and small business owners actually every single day. So that there are a couple of things that I would suggest. If you want to encourage our community to shop local, I think they need to better understand the impact to the community and how you're actually supporting the community. So what really does shop local mean? So do they know that you're employing 15 or 20 or 30 people in Winnipeg that have good, long-standing, secure jobs? That's what people want to understand when they shop local. So what is the impact? What are we doing to contribute to the local economy and to the community? And we find that that's what consumers want to understand. So I hope that is helpful to maybe Joseph or Ian or other business owners out there. The other thing is sometimes we find that we have great local institutions, but they don't change and they don't keep up with the times. So you might have a fantastic business currently, but how do you change and stay agile and pivot when it's necessary? So you know what? Everybody loves the local corner, either coffee shop or restaurant, but, do you deliver? Do you cater? Do you actually meet needs as things evolve in the future? So I hope that helps, because that's a continuing, and it's a good conversation to have, and it's probably something that we can continue long after today's event. But back to Lauren's question, you know what? That's something RBC is thinking a lot about. You know what? If you are on the cusp of becoming an entrepreneur, and then COVID hits, and maybe you're in the middle of a business plan, and maybe you're actually in the middle of starting a business, what does that look like today? So I think all told, it's been a really good learning experience. Although this is a significant shift, businesses are always facing incredible challenges. So being able to see what the pandemic has done and being able to respond to it, and even, to the extent of RBC putting together a report like this and thinking deeply about what entrepreneurs need, a lot of these are going to be impactful way, into the future. It's not just for today. When we look at, the percentage of small businesses that had a website, that was something that needed to change pre-COVID. That's something that we would advise new entrepreneurs today, that you have to be agile, you have to keep up with these things, and you have to have a website. So that, as one example. So a lot of the learning is going to actually be a tremendous opportunity for new entrepreneurs. It may look a little bit scary, but think about what we know today versus what we knew a year ago or 5 years ago. And I think it's actually rather enlightening. And we're going to continue to have these conversations and keep them top of mind, which will help new entrepreneurs and inspire new people to start new businesses. And you know, to be honest, there's going to be spaces that need to be filled when some of the businesses do unfortunately fail. We know that people are opting to leave their businesses. Maybe they're close to retirement, and this is just something that will, you know, have them make that final decision. So they're going to open up spaces in the economy for new entrepreneurs to come in. So we're excited to hear about all the ideas that they have. We're excited to work with them in a startup capacity and to help move those businesses forward. So it looks scary, but I think if you change the mindset, it can also look like an opportunity.
Great, sounds good. So I don't see any other questions on the horizon here. Jessica, no? Yes?
No, I don't have any questions, but I do just want to say thank you so much to everyone. It was such a joy to have this chat with you on here. Have a great day and best of luck to your businesses, and support local. Love and support local.
Yes, so thank you to all our participants and our panelists today. Thank you all for joining us online. If you're interested in the webinar recording, it will be available on our websites later this week. And thank you all again so much. It was a great day today. And have a wonderful day. See you.